What's up? DJ Automotive here. Today I'm going to show you how to change out your fuel injectors on the 95 through 97 Mercury Marquis, Lincoln Town Car, or Ford Crown Vic. It'll be a similar process on the 98 through 02 year models, but it is a little bit different, so this is not going to cover that as well. This would still be a helpful guide for, 95 through 02. Okay, take a look at the tools and stuff that we're going to need and jump right into it. So here's a complete look at everything that you're going to need to do this. Starting with the fuel injectors themselves, we're going to go with Standard Motor Products FJ713. Normally I'd probably use Motorcraft, but pricing them out to replace all 8 of them, Motorcraft would cost a pretty penny. So I've used SMP before multiple times and I'm happy with it, so that's what we're going to go with. Ratchet with extension, as well as an 8mm deep well socket for removing the fuel rails, and a 12mm socket for removing the battery terminals. Needle nose or a fuse puller to remove the fuel pump relay or fuse. Fuel line disconnect. Flathead screwdriver for removing various clips, as well as the hose clamps holding the air tube in place. Also, you may want to use this to fish out any O-rings that might get stuck in the fuel rail. Electronic cleaner spray. Petroleum jelly. There's other things that you could use, but this is what I'm gonna go with. Also, there probably won't be any major fuel spray, but you might want to have a pair of goggles. If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. That's on you. Oh, and also don't forget to have plenty of rags on hand. All right, so now we got to depressurize the fuel system. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove the fuel pump relay, and then I'm gonna crank the car until we can cycle the fuel out. To do that, you come to your little power distribution box here. This is your fuel pump relay right there. Okay, so now that we've done that, you go ahead and put your fuse back in. Next step is to remove the fuel fill cap to allow for proper venting of the fuel system. Disconnect the negative battery terminal. Now we're going to want to remove this air tube right here. So to do that, we're going to want to remove these vacuum lines here first. Then you have 2 large hose clamps, one right here, one right here. Just loosen them up. I went ahead and covered these little intakes just because, but you don't have to. Now you're gonna want to remove these 2 fuel lines here. The first thing you'll do is pop this clip off here. I use a little bit smaller one on this one here. Okay, so with these fuel lines removed, now we're going to remove the clips that hold the injectors, the electrical connectors. So that's pretty easy. You push in on these tabs here, and they just pull right off. All right, so now we are going to undo these 4 bolts that are holding the fuel rails on. There's one right here, obviously. Another one back here. And on this side, it's it right here. And right here. So to do that, you will need a 8mm deep well socket. Now to get to this last one, you just pull this right off of here. All right, next step, we're gonna remove this little plastic clip. It holds all these electrical connectors. So to do that, they got these little tabs down here. Just pop them off. You gotta use both hands. Alright, so now our fuel rail is completely exposed. You're gonna wanna go ahead and disconnect the little connector to the fuel pressure regulator here. Disconnect this little electrical connector right here. We're just gonna pull on this, give it a nice tug. Finally found a good place to put the camera, and I thought I was recording myself pull the last two injectors out, and I wasn't even recording. So basically, once you get the fuel rail loose, pull up on it. You know, you just get a grip, pull up on it, okay? And either the injectors will pop out with the rail or they'll stay in place. Either way, no matter what, you just, if they stay on the rail, just raise the rail, wiggle the injector off. If it stays in place, just wiggle and twist it out, you know? Once you do that, you're good. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm going to actually vacuum out this dirt right here. So let's take a minute and go ahead and clean our fuel injector connector clips. To do that, I'm gonna spray a little bit of electronic cleaner. All right, so here are our old injectors. Now, first thing you're gonna notice immediately is that some of these injectors are missing the O-ring at the top. That means that they're still in the fuel rail. So if this happens to you, go back to the fuel rail and retrieve the O-ring. All right, so as it turns out, two of the rings were stuck in the fuel rail, and one of them actually just had fallen out onto the valve cover. So you just want to make sure that they're not still stuck in the fuel rail. If they fell out onto the covers or somewhere else, it's not a big deal. All right, so here are our new injectors and our old injectors. The new ones on the bottom, the old ones at the top. You're gonna coat these O-rings here at the top and bottom with a little bit of petroleum jelly. So to install our new fuel injectors, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push them into the fuel rail first and then pop them in place. So position the fuel rail. Now all the fuel injectors are in the fuel rail. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna push the rail back in. We're gonna pop the injectors back into place on both sides. And then we can go ahead and start putting everything back together. Alright, now we can go ahead and put these 4 bolts back in to where they belong. Go ahead and tighten them down. 8mm socket. Alright, so now we can go ahead and put this little plastic rail with the electrical connectors on it. You can go ahead and snap that into place. You can go ahead and put this clip back in. Put this little boot right here into the fuel pressure regulator. You can take this little connector and put it right here. Put these fuel lines back on. Start putting the electrical connector clips back onto the fuel injectors. Go ahead and put this back on right here. Put this back on here. Now we can go ahead and put our air tube back on. Now we want to plug these back in. Put your negative battery terminal back on. Alright, so now we can go ahead and start the car up. Don't be alarmed if it takes a minute to turn over. The fuel still got to cycle through the system. See what I do for y'all? So yeah, you want to make sure that, you know, nothing's leaking, there's no spray, no spatter, no nothing. And there you have it. That's how you do a complete fuel injector change on a 95 to 97 Mercury Grand Marquis. I hope you found this video helpful and informative. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to let me know. And as always, I appreciate y'all. And until next time, we out.